They call me Triple X because I have 3 of them. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the John of News Studios. I hope you're enjoying your coffee and having a great morning, just as I am. I had a question that came in, a comment that came in on one of my videos, and a question. And let me just read a little bit about the. Let me just read what the comment is, so then you guys will have the opportunity to see where I'm coming from when I give you this question. Really enjoying your talks and interpretation. Many thanks for raising our individual and collective consciousness for those who seek. Well, you're quite welcome. I don't know if I'm doing that, but I think each one of you is raising your own consciousness. I'm just putting out my truth, and maybe my truth resonates a little bit for some of you. I wonder if you have shared or might be willing to share more about your divorces. I think you said thrice, and I love the use of the word thrice. Being someone who is a Shakespeare freak and a Renaissance Festival guy, I am thrice overjoyed to see the use of the word thrice. Thank you very much. And how how the divorces impacted you spiritually and emotionally. Was it a long-term setback, and or how were you able to get back to source after going through such emotional turmoil? If this is too personal, feel free to ignore, but it's something I have struggled with in my own marriage. I'll gladly share, and I've shared about my marriages and my divorces before, not as a single video, so this will be the one video that talks about the divorces directly. Yes, I am known as Triple X. That's a joke, of course, because I have 3 X's. I want to share with you the pathway to having 3 X's, because it sounds different, but it'll be more understandable when you understand the context. So when I was a fairly young man, I met a beautiful, tall Syrian woman with thick, dark, curly hair and beautiful brown eyes, and the two of us just had an emotional connection, which made us. We would laugh until we cried. We would get euphoric around each other. It was one of the most beautiful, fun relationships. Wonderful, and still today, it's probably the most loving relationship, a romantic loving relationship I've ever had in my life. And not that she's the love of my life, but she was definitely the love of that part of my life. No doubt. Fell madly in love with her. And she chased me. I was very into something else, and I was still dealing with some of my own self-worth issues from my background with my father, and she chased me. And she wooed me. And we got together, and we were together for a long time. Well, I guess about 5 years, 6 years. And got engaged. And it was lovely. It was lovely. Then we had some things where she was traveling for school and stuff, and eventually she met somebody else while overseas, and she left me for that person. I was devastated. I got very bitter, and within 11 months, I met somebody else, and very quickly proposed to her because I was just heartbroken and found this other person who is a lovely person, had a lot of her own traumas and turmoils, but I definitely rebounded into that relationship. She had a lot of serious chemical imbalances. She was a severely bipolar person and was struggling horribly with bipolarism. Now, I need you to understand that when I commit to someone, I am a committer. I don't cheat ever, and I never. When I'm committed for life. I don't think of the negative outcome in the end. I focus on this is what I'm doing, and I don't think about negative outcomes. So when I tell someone I'm committed to them, I'm committed to them until the day I die. If it continues that way. So I was committed to her, and we ended up getting married. So my my first wife was a rebound. Okay, so it wasn't even a year before my first wife, her chemical imbalances made her infatuated with somebody else, and she went off the rails, and it was like the whole marriage was suddenly nothing in her eyes, and she filed for divorce. Meanwhile, I had completely changed my life to match not only her expectations, but her father's expectations, because he didn't like the fact that I was a long-haired Renaissance Festival guy. And so I chopped off my hair, and I became a landscape designer, and I got a good job, and I was doing all kinds of things to appease her and her father. Well, then when she took off, I had about a year of just going through my life, and into my life comes the first one, comes back into my life, the one who meant so much, right? And she came into my life, and it was like one of those situations where we were just had a great connection again, and that we never lost that great connection in that way. And then she went off to the Peace Corps in Africa, and we just, we never connected like being exclusive. We just reconnected. We stayed in contact. And when she came back from Africa, she actually called me up and asked me to meet her in Paris. So I went to Paris. And I went to Paris and Nice, Rome, and Florence with her. And it was magical. It was magical. And she came on the road with me doing Renaissance festivals, and it just got really crazy because I became an entertainment director, and I was, entertainment directors' jobs, if you do it right, you're working a ridiculous amount of hours trying to put a show together. And because you're the one who is in control of the image, the visual. And I was working ridiculous hours, and it was not giving. My career became something that was in my mind for us, and she wasn't getting any positive stuff because I was working so much. And so she said, you have to get off the road. So I got off the road. I quit. Got off the road. We eventually got married, which was my second wife. So my first wife was a rebound from my second wife. That's my joke that I often use. My first wife was a rebound from my second wife. We had a child together, and it was great. I was working on the weekends. She and I started a business flipping houses and doing that work. And, well, now I'm working on the weekends, making more money than I would made on flipping houses. And doing my comedy show on the weekends and flipping houses. But flipping houses, I was the one who was in the houses rebuilding them. So I was working, once again, ridiculously long hours. And she was at home with the baby. And to make a long story short, she connected with somebody on a video game. And next thing you know, I was... my house was empty. My truck was gone. My wife and my child were living in Ohio with her boyfriend, which I didn't know she had at the time. So I packed my life and I moved to Ohio. Got here, and here's where I struggled for a while with depression. I struggled for a little bit of time with depression here. So after 4 years of struggling with depression, I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I am ready for a fun and easy relationship. Thank you, God, for a fun and easy relationship I'm receiving. And through through a funny internet conversation, I ended up connecting with a friend of mine I'd known for years, who I've always thought was just cool and spunky and fun and beautiful, and I just was enamored immediately. And we connected. Within a week, we were involved, and I was helping her rebuild her booths at Renaissance festivals, and I was, talking about all kinds of things. And then eventually came to the point where I was like, yeah, well, we'll get a place. We'll bring your aunt in to take care of her because she was getting to the. So it came down to make a long story short, what happened was I once again gave up who I was, right? And when I gave up who I was, I became very much used. I suddenly was living in a house with her aunt, and I was the one taking care of her aunt. My wife was on the road doing Renaissance festivals, and I was home taking care of the aunt, taking care of the house, taking care of all the business here. And she was off partying and playing with her friends. And so as far as that relationship was concerned, it was doomed from the beginning because she was never actually committed to it. She was committed to what she wanted and this vision of what she wanted, but she wanted someone to take care of her aunt. She wanted someone to live the way she wanted them to live, and she wanted someone who would literally give up their life for her. And to the point where she lived in the house with me during our marriage a few months a year. But she insisted that the house be decorated the way she wanted, and if it wasn't the way she wanted, then I was going to suffer for it. So it became a really, really rough situation. So let's talk about that. So those are my three. Eventually, what happened was I found out she had arranged to meet some man in Canada and have a weekend getaway with this person that she met online, which is exactly how we got together, right? So it was one more thing, and I told her to get her out of my house, So let's go back and talk about how my spiritual life overlaid with these divorces. During my second marriage to the first fiance, but the second wife, is when I started having all the psychics telling me about the experiences. So prior to that, I had not had that yet. The first wife, there was none of that spirituality involved. I was living a life doing Renaissance Festival, doing whatever I could, doing things I love to do, but my spirituality was really not involved in that one. But during the second one, my second wife was very aware, and she was right there. She knew that certain things would happen. I remember after we divorced, one day she had a car accident with my son in the car, and I came over to drop him off, and she says, "I need to talk to you." She says, "I need you to tell me it's going to be okay for him to ride my car, because I know if you tell me it's going to be okay, then I know it will be." I was like, "Jen, accidents happen," and I kind of explained to her, I said, don't worry about it. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on loving driving. Focus on it all being good, and it'll all be good. So she was really, but she couldn't do that with her new husband because he was not a spiritual person. He was not, for her, he was not me. And she knew she could talk to me about those things. So she was very much right there with me the whole time. When we divorced and I ended up with my third wife, she claimed to have been there right there with me, but she liked the story of it more than the spirituality of it. She didn't believe pretty much anything. She's a very negative person. And the negative person within her was hoping for something that would stand out and be a big, huge story and so on. And so for me, the way my spirituality plays with this is I have to realize that my spirituality is my personal journey. And what I realized very quickly in all three of my marriages, in all three of my divorces, is that those divorces happened because I stopped being my authentic self. No one can love you for you if you're not you. No one can love you for you if you are living up to their expectations and trying to fulfill their needs rather than living who you are. Unconditional love means there's no conditions. And we all want unconditional love. The reason my marriage has failed was not because of the terrible things they did. That was the product of me no longer being me. And if they're not going to love you for you, then they're not going to love you. They're going to have conditions. You have to understand that love, to have a truly loving relationship, the love has to be unconditional. And my biggest lesson was always remain yourself. And if they don't accept you for you, then they're not for you. And people say, well, marriage is work, and marriage can be work. Marriage can also be a joyful, loving experience, but only if both partners are unconditional. Tough times come and you work as a loving partner together, or tough times come and the blame starts to happen and the conditions start to happen. Well, you better do this so we can do that. Those conditions are the things that will eat a marriage alive. And so when it comes down to why am I divorced 3 times, I'm divorced 3 times because I stopped being true to myself. Now, this is something that empathic people often do. They feel they want to serve and they will set themselves aside for others. And it's not about setting yourself aside for others. It's about living balanced, loving yourself equally with those that you love. And if you're not willing to give yourself the love and you're giving up who you are, then that's the condition you've placed upon yourself. You've got to be you to be loved for being you. And that's really what it comes down to. So what did I learn spiritually? Be you. Be authentic. And if they love you for you, then they're for you. And I hope that answers your question. And I will talk to you guys soon. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.